Okay, let's do the procedure. Block. This is first what I do.
It's been a what and reek for Hikaru Nakamura, paired twice with his arch nemesis Vladimir. Now this is a brand new tournament here, the Crunchlabs event. This is the play-in section and the players are in tip-top shape. Look at Wesley So's abs, it's like a cheese grater. It's one of the entry criteria that you're absolutely ripped from 1,000 crunches. Hikaru obviously on point. Here's Hans Niemann swimming away, trying to get those abs for next year's tournament. Look at him go, gliding like a fish there, a human stockfish, elegantly moving through the pool. Another criteria is that you can do queen and bishop checkmate. That's tripped up a few grandmasters, and you have to bring along your favourite oversized piece. Here's Vladimir Kramnik with his king. We've got Arjun with his horsey and David with his queen. It's kind of like a grandmaster's Pokemon, with them all the time. Now if you make it to the tournament, you then have the play-in event. This is where Hikaru and Kramnik met. Online rapid play chess, make it through here and you get to the finals where Magnus will be playing and other superstars. Kramnik playing with white here. He kicks off with e4, best by test, and there's a drama twist to come, a procedure and some serious rage quit stuff. No clickbait. Now what does Hikaru do here? Does he play a reverse grob like we saw earlier in the week with the white pieces? No, he doesn't. He's taking it seriously, plays pawn e5, solid, both of these knights developing into the game, and Kramnik plays a Spanish, yells vamos, making Ferrari noises as he moves the bishop across the board. Hikaru now plays one of the most solid variations in the world, knight to f6. He stands up and announces Ich bin ein Berliner, and look at the reaction of Vladimir Kramnik, knowing what an overpowered opening this is.
Pooh, what a move.
Kramnik's opening being used against him, an Uno reverso from Hikaru, castle's now played, and Hikaru takes a pawn here, moving a piece twice in the opening, a cardinal sin. Is he a very naughty boy or does he know what he's doing? Kramnik goes d4, and what we see with this variation is the infamous Berlin endgame, or is it a queenless middle game? No one knows. The bishop's hit, it takes on c6, you always capture towards the center, except when you don't. So easy to learn this game of chess. And now after pawn takes here, knight hit, moving out of the way, we see the queens leave the board. No more strong female leads. Can't be a modern movie. Now we see knight c3 and Kramnik does a muted Winnie. All the horses in the game here, but it's game face. Bishop d7 from Hikaru, covering the private parts of the exposed king. b3 now played. Is Vladimir preparing to fianchetto the rook? Well, after h6, sanity prevails. The Archbishop of Banterbury hits the long diagonal and a5 played. Standard pawn structure. Rook ad1 because obviously, and king c8, and now a4 played because Kramnik wants to maneuver the knight, but he doesn't want to allow black to go a4, open the a file. b6 therefore from Hikaru. He sets up a connect 3, gives himself a pat on the back, knight e2, and now these are the top moves of the engine, especially pawn to c5, but none of them selected here. Instead, we see knight e7. Hikaru completely forgets which way he's attacking. His bishop now free to move though, and after knight f4, we see his point, pin and win as they say, but here Kramnik just carries on with his plan, takes a deep breath, drag on the vape, and pushes on with pawn to e6. Overpowered pawn sacrifice, because after captures, who's having the last laugh on that long diagonal, and the square vacated for a knight. So rook fe1 played, intensifying the pressure. Here we see the knight re-centralizing, and now you can take the pawn with the knight. It's a decent way to play, but instead Kramnik picks up his knife and forks Hikaru's noodles on the king side there. That's a big threat to win an entire rook, so it moves to the g8 square, and again these are some of the top moves. You can kick away the knight with c4 for example, but instead knight g to e5 played. It looks sensible, hitting the bishop, covering the knight, hitting c6, but there's something not quite right about it. It helps Hikaru improve that bishop. Massive threat to take on c2. Everything collapses. So knight d4 necessary, and now we see the move. Excellent by Hikaru, by the way. He knows when he has to develop with tempo. Bishop b4, hitting that rook, and no time for c3. Didn't click down the line, but presumably knight takes on c3. Good for black. So what do we see instead? Rook f1 necessary, and now bishop c3, preparing to win an entire piece. And if you take on c3, will you bring in this knight with deadly effect? So we don't see takes played. Instead, knight takes on f5. Great move. Hikaru with a choice of how to recapture. And just before we continue with the game, if you're not yet subscribed, do consider smashing that button, becoming a grandmaster in no time. Results do vary though. Now what was played here? Well, a mistake. You should take on b2 or take on f5, but takes on e5 was played. Given a miss by Stock Squid there, because now you can actually pick up that bishop immediately, or there's this move of check. It quite likes that, to drag the knight away, then capture. But instead we see takes here. It's a nice idea. Win a pawn, given the knight was about to drop anyway, but there's a problem. You can actually take on b2, sack and exchange, or take here with check. King recaptures, then pawn recaptures, and black actually emerges a pawn ahead here. Can Kramnik generate pressure on that weakened e6 pawn? It's covered by the rook. Now we see rook e4, Kramnik preparing to stack those two towers. Tolkien would be proud. King b7 played to activate the second rook, and now the most explosive move on the board, the knight hitting b4. Looks great, but it's kind of firing blanks. Where's the actual effect? Now we see rook d7, and something wicked this way comes. Rook f8 played, f3 therefore, and now the top engine move is rook f to g8, intensify the pressure on g2. But Hikaru, spooked by Kramnik, plays knight a6. A knight on the rim is a terrible waste of space, as they say. Yes, it's doing a defensive job, but look at that, it's ugly. Dad's ashamed. Now what to play? Well, bishop e5 of course, intensify the pressure. Hikaru goes rook f5, and now you can soon play f4 to support the bishop, but instead we see the pawn structure maintained. Rook h7 on the board, rook h5 check, king g1, rook back, king f1, and Hikaru starts marching the pawn. The next few moves, they get the question mark or the miss, but doesn't materially change too much. Rook e3 played, rook g to g5, bishop hit, f4, the favourite move of Stockwell, but not played. Bishop drops back, rook f6, rook e7, both players playing like absolute patzers according to the Silicon Overlord, but this one now jumps back to defend the pawn some more, and bishop e5. Lots of shuffling from both players. The rook comes back, rook d3, rook g8, rook e3, and after rook g to g6, I'm afraid to report the game did end in a draw, true to its reputation, the solid Berlin defence. Now yes, it wasn't the most entertaining game, but have a listen to what Kramnik said after the tournament.
And the attitude towards players is just like disrespectful, so I mean nothing positive to tell about Chess.com and about this case today. So well, I will finish this tournament and say adios to this platform.
So long, farewell, I'll read it saying goodbye.
Yes, Kramnik's preparing to do the procedure on chess.com.
Okay, let's do the procedure. Block. This is first what I do.
The attitude is disrespectful. nothing positive say adios chess.com.
He is literally playing right now as I'm making this video, but the moment he gets knocked out, he's apparently gone. In terms of why, well, the 15-second summary is he got disconnected during the tournament, said to the organizer, can you give me a moment? They said they'd look into it. He tried to rejoin his game, but he'd forfeit it, and he therefore lost a round. Having said that, he still qualified in the end for this next round, which he's playing in right now. Maybe it was a bit of a Swiss gambit, part of a master plan. And if you don't get that reference, get on to Ask Jeeves. I'm talking about the Swiss gambit tournament strategy, not the opening variation. That wraps us up for this video, I think. If you didn't see the game between these two guys earlier in the week featuring a Grob, then check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.